Hi folks, and welcome to another video of mine. In this video, we're going to be talking about the One More Thing event by Apple. Apple just launched its brand new Mac machines with its own M1 Apple Silicon. So in this video, we're going to talk about the power, the performance capability, and all of the good things that it has to offer. We're also going to talk about which out of these machines may be the right machine for you, given the fact that it's going to stay with you for at least the next 4 to 5 years. So let's take a deep dive and find out together, shall we? The start of the event, the brand new M1 chip. Apple claims that the M1 is the world's fastest CPU core with 4 high performance cores for your multitasking, for your heavy duty tasks, and it also comes along with 4 high efficiency cores, which means that it utilizes very little power, but it still delivers high performance. This section is for all you graphic artists, graphic designers, for gamers. Now this deals with the graphical processing power of the M1 chip. It comes with up to 8 cores, which shelve out over 2.6 teraflops of performance. To give you context, the last generation of consoles, PS4 and Xbox One S, did have over 1.84 and 1.4 teraflops of performance. So you can understand, as far as games go, high graphical applications like Lightroom or Photoshop, etc., they will all work seamlessly and it'll work like a charm thanks to the 8-core GPU on the M1 chip. Alright, so let's jump straight into the comparison of all these 3 machines that were launched. We are talking about the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini with the M1 chip. Now, just a disclaimer here, the Mac Mini is a different beast altogether because it's a mini desktop. So it can't exactly be compared with the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air. Why? Well, it's because you have to buy additional equipment to make full use of it. You have to buy an external monitor, or you have to connect it to a TV. You have to buy a pair of speakers to be able to enjoy sound. And then you even have to get yourself a webcam if you're actually going on a Zoom call or on a Skype call, etc. So there are additional things that you have to do with the Mac Mini. Therefore, we are gonna primarily focus on the 2 machines, which is the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. Then we are finally gonna come back to the Mac Mini as well, but we're not gonna talk about it as much as these 2 laptops. Now, starting with the dimensions and what is available internally, both these devices, the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, they start off at 13.3 inch of Retina display. As we saw, it comes with up to 8 core of the new Apple M1 chip. And here's an interesting point. The memory on this is not upgradable beyond 16 gigabytes. The reason why it's not upgradable beyond 16 gigabytes is because now all these machines come with unified memory. Now everything is on the M1 chip, meaning that if you want to go in for the 16 gigabytes, you have to take that decision because you can't upgrade it later on. So that's one important point to keep in mind while you're purchasing these devices. So in case I was gonna make this purchase, I would definitely go in for the 16 gigabyte version and not the 8 gigabytes version. Now, as far as battery life goes, they have made a significant improvement here, and here they claim that the MacBook Air comes with 18 hours of battery life and the MacBook Pro comes with 20 hours of battery life. Now, this is a significant improvement over the last generation of MacBooks. What the M1 chip does is it, due to the high efficiency CPU performance, it can dish out such great battery life. And this is seen here with the 18 and the 20 hours of battery life. Now, the only difference between the 2 in terms of the physical buttons and the Touch ID, etc., is that the MacBook Pro comes with that touch bar. So you can control the volume, you can improve the brightness of the screen, and the Touch ID is also embedded in that touch bar. Whereas the MacBook Air only comes with the Touch ID. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is that how subtle this difference is, but it's mentioned on the website. Now, when they talk about the MacBook Air, what they say here is that it has up to 8-core GPU. Now, I think they should have put an asterisk and they should have mentioned what do they mean by up to, because when it comes to the MacBook Pro, there is no word up to. It's a straight off 8-core GPU. So they say 4 efficiency cores and 8-core GPU, but here it's up to 8-core GPU. So graphical performance may be better on the MacBook Pro. In fact, since it states that it's up to 8-core GPU, the MacBook Air might have inferior performance compared to the MacBook Pro when it comes to the graphical performance. So this is one important point to note. Of course, as far as memory goes, both come with 8 and 16 gigabytes as we have seen. Now storage options, it goes right up to 2 terabytes worth of SSD. Very good to have 2 terabytes worth of SSD, especially if you're into editing a lot of movies, or if you're downloading a lot of games, and if you're into high performance oriented applications like Photoshop, etc., and they are heavy files that you're working with, then I would recommend that you go with at least a bare minimum of 512 gigabytes worth of SSD, and the more the merrier in this case. Now in terms of the display, both the displays are as good as one another, with the only difference being in the nits brightness, which is the MacBook Air comes with 400 nits of brightness and the MacBook Pro comes with 500 nits of brightness. Now as far as the size and weight goes, of course the Air is sleeker, it's lighter, and it's going to be easier to maneuver and hold, but not much of a difference if you really ask me in terms of the dimensions. And of course the Mac Mini is a totally different beast altogether, so I'm not even putting it in the comparison here. As far as the camera goes, another significant thing to notice is that there is no upgrade with the camera. We all were hoping that they would at least provide a 1080p FaceTime HD camera, but they have not. They have still stuck to the 720p FaceTime HD camera. Now in the Apple event, they did talk about improving the picture quality through the M1 chip by machine learning and through different algorithms. They improve the picture quality or the video quality by reducing noise, etc., but whether or not it relates to the real world and how it performs in the real world, we'll only get to know when we get to see the device in person. Till that time, the point to note is that it's still 720p FaceTime HD camera. Now in terms of the audio, of course the MacBook Pro, it comes with high dynamic range of speakers, so the sound output and quality is going to be comparatively better. Also, the important point to note here is the fact that the MacBook Pro comes with studio quality 3 mic array, which means that this is going to be missing on the MacBook Air. The only other device that I can actually think of which comes with studio quality mic array is the 2020 iPad Pro. But this is not available on the MacBook Air. So another point to note, you see how these subtle differences are there, but otherwise they're more or less the same. In terms of the keyboard and the trackpad, of course there are going to be differences because the MacBook Pro even comes with the touch bar. So that's the difference here. Apart from that, there are other differences, subtle differences on the keyboard and how it's laid out as well. In terms of the wireless performance, all the devices are the same. In terms of your ports, well, here there is a difference compared to the last generation of MacBook Pro, because I believe the last generation of MacBook Pro even had an option of 4 Thunderbolt ports, 2 on each side, but this time they are only going with 2 Thunderbolt ports even on the MacBook Pro. And even on the MacBook Air, there are only 2 Thunderbolt ports available and 4 USB ports. Now as far as Mac Mini goes, well, it has some more ports like the USB-A port and the HDMI 2.0 port as well, because obviously you have to connect it to an external monitor, and then a gigabit Ethernet port as well. In terms of the authentication, the touch bar and Touch ID sensor is available on the MacBook Pro, but on the MacBook Air it's only the Touch ID sensor. Video calling stays more or less the same, but again, let me tell you that if you want to do video calling on the Mac Mini, you have to buy an additional device, which is a webcam, and only then you'll be able to carry out your video calls. Now in terms of audio calling, standard affair all across the board. And in terms of your voice assistant, obviously it's macOS, which is macOS Big Sur, by the way, so it does come with Siri as well. In terms of battery, we've already taken a look at the battery life, and it's going to come with a significant upgrade in terms of battery life, where it says that it gives up to 18 hours of Apple TV app movie playback and up to 20 hours of Apple TV app movie playback. So in terms of video playback, you can expect at least 18 to 20 hours of movie playback on MacBook Air and MacBook Pro respectively. Now this is an important factor. The MacBook Air only comes with 30 watts of USB-C power adapter, whereas the MacBook Pro comes with 61 watt of USB-C power adapter, and of course, this makes a huge difference in terms of how fast the device can be charged. So these are your different machines. Now, like I said, the Mac Mini is obviously a different beast altogether, because the Mac Mini is a mini desktop and it's not a laptop. You have to have a external device like a monitor, a webcam, speakers, etc. to operate it. Now, if you add all those costs together, this is going to significantly shoot up, because if you buy a TV or a monitor, a good monitor, even a QHD monitor, then you are talking about adding another 25 to 30,000 rupees bare minimum. So the price significantly goes up, and then you have to add a webcam, and if you buy a good webcam, then it's gonna cost you at least 15 to 20,000. I'm talking about a good webcam, by the way, not a cheap webcam. So the price, when it adds up all together, does not really make sense, because you even have the iMac at a very competitive price, and it comes with a good pair of speakers. It comes with a great screen. In fact, if you're going in for a 27-inch Mac, which I use, you even get it with a 5K screen. So in my personal opinion, buying a Mac Mini does not really make sense unless you have not used a Mac at all. But for a person who has used an iMac, you would understand where I'm coming from. And for a person who is mobile, who keeps moving around, who does a lot of traveling, even during this time of COVID, then my opinion would be to choose from either of these two machines, which is the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. And in terms of pricing, the MacBook Air is more competitively priced, and obviously it is comparatively inferior of the two devices, but only in terms of graphical output. In terms of all other things, it actually goes neck to neck with the MacBook Pro. But if you are a person who is a professional graphic artist or a graphic designer, or you're a professional gamer, then my suggestion would be to go with the MacBook Pro, because obviously it has more graphical power, it has a better battery life, and what it also has is in its favor, that is a better screen, because it's got 500 nits of brightness. So you'll be able to have popping colors, you'll be able to work on those projects of yours comparatively better in comparison to the MacBook Air. But for everyday user, a user like you and me, does it actually make sense to shell out the extra bucks and go in for the MacBook Pro? Well, if I'm not a graphic designer, if I'm not a graphic artist, then it really would not make a difference, and I would still suggest that you go with the MacBook Air. This would still be my pick when it comes to buying a device out of these three devices, especially with COVID. One has got to take care of their budgets, one has got to take care of how much they're spending. You can still get introduced to the entire ecosystem of Apple devices, and it's a great entry point. If you have never owned a MacBook, if you have never owned an Apple device, then the MacBook Air is a fantastic entry point. It gives you an idea as to how fantastic the whole ecosystem is, how brilliant the apps would work, and with the M1 chip, you will get so much more your money's worth, because as we had seen in the video as well, even editing two 4K videos side by side, it works like a charm. The M1 chip really dishes out massive amount of performance without compromising on your efficiency, and that's why the M1 chip is a revolutionary chip in terms of your processors and the processing industry. So this is a fantastic leap from the previous generation of Intel chips, and now it'll be interesting because it adds more competition in the market as well. So Intel had AMD, but Intel always had this market leader sort of a dominance. But with the M1 chip now, and more people leaning into the Mac OS ecosystem, it'd be interesting to see moving forward how the M1 stacks up against Intel and how Intel comes up with more products of its own in the future. But as of now, we have seen that Mac has claimed that it performs 2x greater in terms of the CPU power, 5x greater in terms of the GPU power. When Mac makes these claims, going by their track record, we know that their claims are generally claims which are not false. So if they talk about something, then it definitely means that there's weight to it, and from its own track record, we can rely on what it says. So when they say that it's got this 5x graphic speed and it's got over 8 cores and gives you 2x worth of power, then yes, we can trust Mac and depend on it. Although there is no context here because we don't know which machine they're comparing it to, but still we can depend on Apple based on their track record. And of course, this is up to 9 times faster in terms of machine learning applications. So this is a significant jump. It's a massive leap in terms of what the computer can do with applications which rely on machine learning. And of course, they are also launching their macOS Big Sur on the M1 chip. So you will see this update even if you are having an older device like an iMac or your previous generation of MacBook. You will still get access to the Big Sur on those devices as well. But obviously, the Big Sur on the M1 chip is going to perform so much better. Now, the other thing that I did want to talk about is all your iPad and your iPhone applications will also work on the MacBook moving forward with the help of Big Sur. So you will be able to run your favorite games, your favorite applications from your mobile devices on your Mac now, thanks to the M1 and thanks to the Big Sur that you are able to do that now. So there isn't really much that I can comment on unless I've used the Big Sur myself, but I'm really looking forward to this update. It's going to be a big update and it's going to be available as early as Thursday. So really excited and really looking forward. Maybe by next week I will give you a review or a personal experience of what the new update is all about. So that's it for this video, folks. It has been an interesting event and definitely a great one, especially for all the laptop lovers and even a mini desktop lover. So much to look forward to, so many exciting things happening with Apple, and hopefully we will get to find out how the M1 performs and how the Big Sur is gonna perform as far as an OS goes. So that's it for this video, folks. I hope I've been able to answer the question of which device should you purchase in case you are thinking about purchasing a laptop or a desktop. With that said, that's it for this video, folks. If I haven't told about this already, then I would request all of you to please like and subscribe to my channel. And in case your friend or your family member is out there looking for a laptop or a desktop, you can share this video with that person and hopefully it will help them in making an informed decision while purchasing their next laptop or desktop. So please hit that like and subscribe button, folks. It means a lot and it would definitely encourage and motivate me to make more videos like this. With that said, that's it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching and take care. God bless you all.